Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of Nowhere. Well, it's nice to get back doing it again. I think I've been off about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, because my operation got cancelled 5 times. So every time I set a date, and then 2 days before or a day before it got cancelled again. So eventually I got my operation. 17th, I think it was. Yeah. I had a bit of a rough patch after the operation, but I'm all right now, recovering at home. Just takes a bit of time, get back into a sleeping pattern. Hopefully the pain will go away. I'm sure it will do. Well, my guest today is Sasha Christie. Now, I think it's quite a while. It's about over a year ago since Sasha was last on. Sasha is a lifelong experiencer of multi-phenomena. She's been a paranormal investigator and research since 1991. Can we please welcome Sasha to the show? Hello there.
Hiya, Bob. How are you doing? You're bionic now. You got bionic knees and you got bionic hips. There'll be no stopping you.
Yeah, two knees done, one hip done, waiting for the other hip in probably another 6 months. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Yorkshire. I live in Liverpool now, but I grew up in Yorkshire. And I lived in a little old village called Seacroft. It's quite a big village now, but I lived in the old village, which the houses there are hundreds of years old. So the house that we lived in was about 300 years old. So as you imagine, it was quite, creepy. It wasn't very creepy because it was all nice and white and everything. My mum had it, like bright, but some weird stuff was happening there. My mum, she had experiences as well. She said that she woke up one night and the room was full of like fluorescent green, like she said, like pig's tails, little corkscrews. And they were all just hanging in the air and turning really slowly. And I was like, okay. I saw things slithering across the floor, like big fat snakes, short but fat. And once I looked in the mirror, I don't know what I thought I was doing, honestly, but I looked in the mirror and I was in the bathroom, which was a really tiny little room. It was only big enough for the toilet, the sink and a shower. And I was staring in the mirror and I didn't have the light on. And I was just looking at my eyes and my face changed loads of times. And it settled on this old man who had like a balding head, bit of hair here and a white beard. Yeah. And he had like a little bootlace tie. And like the top of a shirt and like what I assume now is a waistcoat. And I actually I scared myself to death and ran away, and I was too scared to go to the toilet in the dark for absolutely, like anywhere in the dark for ages. So not really sure what that was because, I have got like some like weird abilities. It's sporadic, like it happens when it happens kind of thing. And I sort of think now that I feel that was the person who built the house. And it was, scrying. It's called scrying, is that? But obviously I wouldn't have known that when I was like 7. So, and then when my grandma and granddad died when I was about 10, me and my sister were walking to see that's my dad's parents. They died within 6 months of each other. And my sister and I were going to go see my great grandma on my mum's side. And as we were walking to her flat, these two people walked past us and I looked up at them and it was my grandma and granddad. And I know this because he had this cat. They went to Jerusalem. They went all over the place and they had all these like little souvenirs. And we used to play with them when we went round. And one was a cat and another one was I can't remember what you call them. The Jews wear them. But it was like, it was like a tourist one because it had where they'd been. And like a Spanish fan and all that kind of stuff. He was wearing that, even though they weren't Jewish. He had that on his head, and it was the same one. It was like blue and gold and red. And they both walked past, and I looked at me and my sister like side eye, but down like that. And we looked at them, and I turned around and I said to my sister, "Did you see that?" And she went, like this. And then we looked behind and it was a long pavement and there was no one there. And that's like, they look absolutely solid, like real, like you could touch them. So when people say, how many ghosts have you seen? I'm like, I don't even know. If they look like that, maybe everybody's one.
Yeah, so it runs in the family then, does it?
Yeah, like my I think my great gran, she was a little bit weird like that, and my grandma saw a cigar UFO in the early 70s, and she was stood on Kirkstall Road in Leeds and looked up, and she said there was just this like long stick in the air. So yeah, and then like when I was 13, my mum pointed it out. I was bringing some washing in. It was like summer, and we lived out in North Yorkshire. You know, between like Goole and Scunthorpe, there's a village called Garthorpe.
Oh yeah, Garthorpe. Yeah,
that's where I lived. So we were bringing the washing in at night. It was summer and it was dark, and she pointed out this little light that was doing this zigzagging all over the place thing. And so because she was like really chilled out about it, I didn't really kind of like think anything of it. I just sort of accepted it. And then when we went to Wales in 1997, when I went with my boyfriend and his sister, their uncle, his nephew, and my son, we all went together. So that's when we saw the massive UFO that came over towards us, and then the little sphere thing that was on the ground. I'm gonna have to turn this light on because one of my lights is dying. I might vanish. That would be a good magic trick, wouldn't it?
Okay.
So woo.
Yeah, so yeah, tell us a bit about Wales then, and about the sighting in Wales and what happened.
So that was insane. We went for a weekend in February. John had hired it. We did this sometimes, you know, like went to Wales. He had a motorbike, did Steve. So we'd go on that. Anyway, this time we went in John's car because we had the kids and loads of stuff. And it, you know, like it was out on the mountain, Snowdon, place called Glencirriog. So I couldn't even remember where it was. I didn't even realise that we were up on the mountain, because when we did see it, it was so low. I thought years later that I must have like pulled it down in my imagination and what have you, that, you know, it wasn't as big or crazy as it was. But when I found Steve after 13 years, because we'd split up after this, we compared notes and it was like, wow, no, it was absolutely insane. So basically he called me outside, and because I was upstairs, so I came running down, and we went out in the garden and we're like leaning against the wall, and he's pointing off in the distance and saying, look, there's some lights. So I couldn't see anything for ages, and he ended up pointing, and I'm looking down his arm, you know, like using his finger like a gun sight to try and look, you know, like look where, because all it was just sky. And it was cloudy, so it was like just a long, massive thing of cloud. And eventually I saw it, and it was like a tiny little flicker, and it came on off, and then it on and off. And I said to him, it's lightning. And he's like, no, it's not. Keep looking. So, because I knew where to look. And then, you know, obviously I'm watching it for a little while, and it's got this uniform pattern to it. It's not lightning because that's erratic and, you know, like moves around. But this was like, you could see that it was something that was traveling slowly this way. And then it's like stopped, but it looked like it was getting bigger. But in actual fact, it was getting closer. And it kind of came towards us. So it was like zigzag, but it was really slow. It didn't come in a straight line like you would expect. It didn't come quick like that. It zigzagged like somebody had a joystick and was moving it around like that, you know.
Like a game.
Yeah, well, it was so big, right? It was like looking at 11 o'clock and looking at 2 o'clock to see both sides of it. You couldn't, unless you know, like you're looking in your periphery, but you couldn't actually see both sides of it looking forward. the end, you know, the ends. And it was just like this explosion of light that was like kind of rippling through the clouds. And because of the different densities of the clouds, you could see it was brighter in some bits. So it looks a bit, it gave the optical illusion of being like a bit like a jellyfish, but it wasn't. That was just because the clouds have got different densities, and so it affected how you saw the light. This went on for ages. It took time to get to us. And in this time, Steve's gone into the house. He's called our housemates because we lived in a shared house. He's told John and Danya, and they've all come out. The kids are out, and we're watching it coming towards us. Then it sort of goes this way, and then over to behind the house, and then came over again, and was above the field in front of the house. So we moved from where we were originally, and we walked up the garden, and we sort of stood, and it was right up above us, completely over the top of us, so that I was like looking up like that. So everyone's kind of scattered about. Like Steve's behind me, and he's done this like I think it was the top of a septic tank. So there's a wall of the house behind him, and he stood there, and I caught out the corner of my eye this flash of light, like orange light, that bounced off. It bounced off the wall of the house, which was like old Yorkshire stone. So I looked like that and saw Steve stood there. And then I turned to look right behind me, and there was a spear on the ground. So this spear was big enough for a person to stand in, but it was like so close, ridiculous. I don't even know how it got there. We've been back as well, and we've looked at it, and it's like, how? No idea how that got there. So above us was this like huge display of lights that has come across, and then all of a sudden, that display is gone. We're not even seeing that anymore, and what we're seeing is a circle of light, brilliant, like bright white light, and from the circle like this, there's lines of light coming out, and they're rotating. And then right at the very edge of where they end, there's another little faint light, and that's going the other way.
Right.
And the light, when it hit anything, was blue. But when you looked at it where it was coming from, it was white. So I looked at Danya, because she stood next to me on a wall a little way up. And I looked at her, she's got blonde hair. She's stood on the wall, and she's looking up, and she was just blue with this light when it touched, and the house was blue, everything was blue. So God, it was really intense. And there were sheep in the field, but they all were lying down, they were quiet. And you know, like what sheep are like, they bear all night, don't they? Like,
yeah, of course they do, yeah.
Quiet.
Sasha, how big do you think the object was then?
Well, I couldn't have determined that. But when we went back and Steve sort of pointed out the valley where we were up on an elevated position overlooking where we were when it happened. Right. So there's like two hills that comes with the valley, which are now, I think, and I've always wondered if there was a valley there, and that zigzagging was following the valley. And so he pointed it out, and I said to him, because I filmed it as well, I said, how big do you think it was then? He said, well, it was immense. It's about a mile across.
God, that's big.
It's huge, yeah.
It is huge.
It's ridiculous. But we didn't see the whole thing because it was inside the cloud, which is why all the lights were rippling. But when it was above us, this bit came out of the clouds, and we could see it clear. But we couldn't see the rest of it because that was all still in the cloud, and it wasn't being all, like it was on the way towards us. It was all that had stopped.
The sober camper in the chat room, hey Bob, does Sasha think she has been abducted after any of her sightings?
Yeah, I do. A few times, yeah. And also, I think it had happened before this, because in like 1992, I lived in Bramley on Ganners Hill, and there's these like blocks of 3 sets of flats. They're only 2 stories. We were the bottom right as you're going up the hill from the roadside. And when I had my son, he was about 5 months old. So I'm going to put it at being about March. It was midweek. My partner's at work. He's having a nap, so I'm having a nap, because that's what you do when you've got a baby. It's the only time you sleep.
Of course you do.
So he used to sleep on my chest with his arms like draped there and his legs there, and I'd sleep with my hands on him like this.
Oh.
And then I heard in my ear, "Sasha, wake up now." And I opened my eyes and I looked, and face to face was this blue squat goblin looking thing with big black eyes.
Oh God.
And this weird like slash of a mouth, and it was all pitted, and it had like a chest, like a like a gorilla chest plate.
Yeah.
But it had like a brown like cape thing on it, but it wasn't fastened, it was open. I could see its chest, and it had no neck. It was all just wrinkles. It had really like like lines on its forehead.
Yeah.
And it was such a mad blue, like really dark but really bright at the same time. Hard to describe. And I shot to the bottom of the bed. I got maybe like scrabbled off to the bottom of the bed.
I bet you did.
I turned around and it's not there, and I'm like, whoa, what a weird dream that was. And I'm going around the flat because I knew what woke me up was a voice in my ear. So I'm going around the flat and I'm shouting, "Tim, Tim." Nobody there. I was like, what the hell? Anyway, but I thought it was just a dream, a mad dream, but a dream, until I watched Communion in 2005 and I saw the thing coming out from behind the vase in the kitchen, the little blue thing that Whitley Strieber said he's seen. That's what they were. Yeah. And I'd seen that was like 1992. And that I was not like, I had a belief in UFOs, but it wasn't an interest in UFOs. It's like, because I'd seen what I'd seen when I was 13, I didn't question it. I didn't really equate UFOs to aliens either, or anything, But
I know Alison had just wrote earlier. She said, "What's the scariest thing what's ever happened to you?"
Well, the thing in Wales, because when we were all out, and there is another scary thing, but when we were all out, the kids were getting scared. So like Steve was like, "Oh, let's take the kids back in," because my son had said that a hand had come through the hedge and touched his foot. Oh. And he said he thought it was the hedge, but then he realized it was a hand, and he was like, "It's not my imagination. I saw it with my eyes," and it was really, like I believed him, but I didn't even look. Like, what the hell? You'd think you would look. If he said there was a monster under his bed, I would go, "Look, there's no monster." I don't know, like didn't even think. Did not even enter my head to go like that and look over that hedge, right? Which was right in front of us. That bothers me. And so we took the kids back in. Steve went back to the sink where he'd been washing up before he got the urge to go out and have a look, which is another weird thing. John and Daniel went back into the living room to watch TV, and the kids went back to the bottom of the stairs where they were playing when I came downstairs, like nothing had happened. They all just went back to where they were before this started. And I looked at them and I was like, F this, I'm off back outside. And I literally said that and went back out, walked up the garden, seen the thing on the floor, kind of laughed and shook my head, and then went and stood right underneath the thing and looking up at it, and I'm going like, now what? What now? Wow, what, And then I heard something run up behind me, and it was like, it was 2 feet. Sheep do not run to people. I've had people say, well, there was sheep around, it was sheep. No, it was not. They don't do that. And that would have been like you would have heard the fall of it. But it was literally, it sounded like my son when he ran across the bedroom at night, when you said get in bed and don't get out of bed again, and they go it was 2 feet, and it bumped into my back and it dragged my clothes with it, and I don't know where it went because there was a wall there, and I just boom, my chest totally exploded, like adrenaline. And I thought, you know, you have the thought to run, but you're way too late, because flight, it just happens. You don't run away consciously. Your body just does its own thing. Do you know what I mean? So by the time I thought run, I'd already been running a few seconds. You know what I mean? I was out of there. I've never felt anything like it. And it was pure terror. And
How long did it last for then, all this?
Oh, well, maybe like
in
4
and out.
hours, maybe about 4 hours.
Right.
And then, you know, by the end of it, we'd all gone to bed and it was still out there. Like, who does that? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things about it like that that bother me and bother Steve.
It would do.
You know, like, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? Why all these things that you think that you do, we did not do any of them. And
So did you go out in the morning when you woke up? Did you go back out again to have a look?
We went all over the place because there's hills all over. So we were going up this hill, that hill. We asked some of the locals if they'd ever seen anything. One of them told us where to go pick magic mushrooms. Like, you know, like we were cuckoo. So we went off up onto this hill, and there was a little hill on the hill, and we went up on that, and there was just a single tree there. So we were looking all around because we were like, what if it was lasers on top of a nightclub? Well, let's go see if we can see anything around, which is ridiculous because we watched it come to us, but we just was trying to find an expert, like, you know, like rationalize it. We weren't UFO researchers, so people like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Like, it's because, well, why would any of that be in my head? I would, you know, like I just worked as a chef and like went out on a weekend and I had a kid and a pretty normal life. Do you know what I mean? So there was just nothing like that I would have. I had no checklist. So we went looking. There was nothing anywhere, nothing apart from the village and the pub. Absolutely nothing. And while we were up there, this little ginger cat rocked up and started rubbing itself on my legs. And I was just like, where the hell has this cat come from? We are in the middle of nowhere. Like, oh my God, it's so freaky.
Another question here for you. Thank you for your answer for the other one. Why do you think people are taken? And do you think they have been implanted?
I don't really know why people get taken, but
do you think I think some are chosen to see things then?
If they didn't want you to see them, you wouldn't. I called them chicken poo cowards, right? And I don't even know how. I knew they were in my house. I knew they were there. I knew they were coming. And they were, you know, like it wasn't just me that they were bothering. I've got a family. I've got, you know, children, everything going on. And I was like, oh, what are you hiding from me for? You know, calling them all these names. And then the next time they turned up, they showed themselves to me. And obviously, I was like, no one's going to believe this is ridiculous, where it's got a silver suit on and a helmet. How stupid. I thought at first what I was seeing was a Power Ranger. And then my brain was like, my brain was like, don't be ridiculous. It's a biker. Because I'm waking up because my brain's buzzing. It's like someone's put a toothbrush, you know, electric toothbrush right in the middle of my brain. And that was what woke me up. And it was absolutely knocking all of my motor skills out completely. So I'm trying to set up. I'm grabbing onto the quilt, you know, like to try and pull myself up, and all I'm doing is getting the cover. I've got bunches of quilt cover in my hands, and I can see my legs are moving, but I can't get it together at all to, you know, get up and out of bed. And the wallpaper's like changing. It's like zebra stripes and then stripes and all these, like the walls and my bed covers, it was just ripples of change of different patterns. Right. And I recognise some of them as being patterns of stuff that I've had in my own home, in previous homes, because I painted them myself. Yeah. I didn't have wallpaper. I used to paint stuff on the walls. But so it stood in the doorway and the light's behind it, so it's a silhouette. It's a grey, but I don't know this at first. And like I say, I think it's a Power Ranger. And then I think it's a biker because, like, why would a Power Ranger? That's ridiculous. And then I was like, why would a biker be stood in my doorway? And then I realised, and I was like, oh. And then I started telling it to go away, leave me alone, get out, you know, like, just. And I'm trying to get up, and I'm trying to get. And then I thought, oh my God, the kids are. It's between me and my kids. If they hear me, they're going to wake up and they're going to see that. So I stopped and I tried to get up, and then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, the front of the helmet is so long down here.
Right.
And the visor like this, and the eyes, you can see it through. And it just turned and it looked at me because I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Why is it wearing silver suit and a helmet? That is that's like the joke of ufology, that that's why people take the mickey out of us.
Yes.
And there it is. And it just looked at me. And all of a sudden, I knew why it was wearing the suit. I knew what the suit did, how it worked, why it was wearing a helmet, everything. It just kind of all unfolded in my head. That this suit was made out of a material that conducted electricity. And these like very fine silver threads that I could see. And it had like a belt thing on it as well, but I don't know what that did. But it wasn't actually a belt because it was part of the whole thing. It was like sewn in. And so what this field that it creates around them, it can manipulate light on a photon level and hide any temperature changes, anything, any movement with any cameras or anything like that. And they wear the helmet because the air is toxic. And I got like a zoom in of a filter at the side. And then and this was like little images and things that came, and it wasn't any words or anything. It was just like an understanding. I just understood that. So you won't see them unless they want you to see them because of this stuff that they wear. And it could just like, it said can manipulate, it's a photon level. But honestly, I think it was beyond that. And that's all I would have understood. So that's why it came across like that. Like about 8 years later, there was an article in like New Scientist magazine where they were talking about this material that was being developed, and it was that. And I was like, very similar sort of application, like abilities to make people invisible. Like cloaking, like they've got that material that you can hide. It's something like that, but this is actually bending light around them. So, I came to that. Oh, and that they have a very rudimentary internal system, and that this also protects them from light, because we live in like black light, or we don't live in like light, we live in black light. And all our light, especially blue light, it can be damaging to them. They get their energy from light in the same way that plants do, but it's not like photosynthesis as we understand it in the plants. It's just a similar kind of process. So they have this liquid in them, which is what absorbs light, and that's the energy. And they use light and frequency together to do things, to like manipulate matter. And one of my experiences, I woke up, I had like a green laser on the crook of my elbow, and another person that I know, she woke up and there was green lasers all over the place. And so when I heard her talk about it, I looked for terrestrial applications of green light. And that year, the year that I was looking, which was 2011, and my experience had been in 2007, they'd approved it in Japan for pelvic health in women and prostate health in men. Now, the experience that I was having, my legs were in the air and someone or something was stood at the bottom of what I thought was my bed initially. And similar sort of procedure was going on with my friend, and they used the green lasers. And I thought, well, that's interesting because it's prostate health and pelvic health. Don't know what they were doing, but if the probe is anything, it might be something that resets the DNA in the cells in the prostate that produce healthy sperm for harvesting and healthy eggs for harvesting. That's an assumption. I'm not saying that that is what I think happened to me. I don't know what they were doing down there, but they were down there doing something. Okay. And you know, like when Phil Kinsella talks about what happened to him, and I've told him about this, and he's like, you know, very interested in all that, obviously. So I don't know. It seems like maybe if they can use frequency and light to heal things, reset things, you know, it seems like they would do that if they were going to take any material from people to reuse, that they would want it to be, you know, like its best, in its best condition.
I know quite a few years ago, I think Philip Mantle wanted you to be interviewed. Can't remember what, I think it were about for a paper or something, and you said, "Oh yeah, I'll be interested," and you told them everything, and they changed it all.
It was, do you know what?
Had you look a fool, really, didn't they?
He wrote about my, well, they said our whale sing in his UFO landings book, and asked if I promote the book. So I said yeah. So I was supposed to be promoting the book, and it turned out to not be that. This is not on Phil, because that's what he expected as well. And then he said there's a film company. So they boiled all this, everything that I've said, and like I said it to you, I say it to everyone in the same way. I can sort of disassociate myself from it, so I'm not all caught up in my emotions with it, which, you know, does happen when I'm like one-on-one telling someone.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like I try to be as near to science and as, you know, like as you can understand what I'm trying to say. And they boiled it down to Liverpool granny scared to leave the house in case she gets abducted by aliens. I was like, I didn't even talk about aliens. I refused, because I knew I know what they do to people who talk about aliens. So I said, no, I'm not talking about that. So they boiled it down to that anyway. Then he said, there's a film company who are doing a documentary based on some of the accounts in my book. I was like, cool, all right. He said they're safe because, you know, they've done other stuff, and it was on like UFO Week and and it's for like Amazon or Netflix or whatever, and on, you know, for streaming online. So you think, oh well, if they've done UFO stuff before and they haven't annihilated anyone, then they must be safe. So we did our stuff. We went to Wales, which was very triggering because we had to stay there overnight at the bottom of the hill where it all happened. And, you know, like going back there, it was really good for me. But I was so nervous leading up to it, because it really changed my life. I ran in absolute terror for my life. That changes you, right? That does something to you. So we went back there. We went all over the place. We actually got invited onto the property by the people who live there now. So we got to have a little walk around. We didn't do any filming while they were there, you know. No. But I took a photograph of where I was stood to show where the sphere was, and I can't even believe how close it was. It was closer than I even remembered. And then when the documentary thing comes out, it's called Black Triangle UFOs, and I'm like, well, what's that about? So they turned everything at the end, and and Steve and Sasha were outside sky watching, looking at the stars or whatever. It showed a clear starry night, which we were categorically. This was in the clouds. It was very cloudy. It had been raining. Now they cleared the sky, and just this black triangle went over. Not the 4-hour epic, ridiculous thing that actually happened. They switched it up because the other two people they were talking to on Black Triangle. Why even include us in it? What is the deal there? It just seems that whenever we try and tell our story, something happens so it doesn't get told properly.
Exactly.
But we are doing it again ourselves with a friend who's got all the equipment, and he's absolutely a total legend, is this fella. And Chuck and Mike, them two have been by my side through all of this, all of everything. They always supported me. And Mike's now got all this like really cool 4K camera equipment and all this stuff, you know. So it's like, right, let's go back and do it. So we're going to go back and we're going to make a documentary ourselves, and we're going to tell it properly ourselves, because you can't trust anyone with that. You can't trust anyone with anything in ufology. The scene itself is savage. If you can survive being cannibalized, you might be accepted. But if you kick back at any of the abuse that you're given, like I stand up for myself, and I'll stand up for other people as well. And everyone gets bullied, well, then I'm the problem, you know. And because I'm so analytical and I debunk a lot, and, you know, I come up with a contentious theory for Rendlesham, and, you know, like I've outed a couple of frauds. I've got Stan Romanek, who's Audrey the alien thing that he peddled as being real, interrupted a Skype call between me and him to tell me how brilliant he was and how fantastic this conference was going to be, that he was trying to talk me into putting on over here for him to speak. And obviously it never happened. But it was like an alien is interrupting my Skype call on a Wednesday afternoon to tell me how fabulous Stan is. I sent it to Dave, and he was like, this is called Audrey software, right? And he called the alien Audrey. And this alien had never turned up in 10 years to talk to him. Turns up to talk to me, and he never mentioned it. Never mentions it in public. And I'm like, oh, why? I've got the recording of it. I recorded it all.
Good for you.
You know, like, yeah, because people try to have me over all the time. Or they perceive me to have some sort of value or sway. Oh, she knows everyone. Like, and then people will like latch onto me and say it's because they're interested, but they never ask me anything about what I've been through. They're always asking me about other stuff, and, you know, like other connections to other people, and, you know, like, and they've made it all up in their heads, because my presence out there, or whatever it is, it's not like I've tried to build anything. I've just been out there giving it this, because all this stuff changed my life massively. It disrupted my personality. It disrupted who I was meant to be. You know, like, I'm traumatized beyond belief, more by the UFO community than by the things that I've actually experienced and seen. And I've had some scary, you know, like, living in a haunted house is scary. It's unsettling, and you don't relax, because you just don't know when someone's going to got somebody coughing right at the back of your head, or you can't getting shoved sideways out of a window, bed shaking, and, you know, like, and people are like, oh, they're so cool. It's like, it's not cool when you live with it.
It's
you know
not.
what I mean? It's really not. So I'm very disrupted as a person. I'm autistic as well. So, you know what I mean?
How many times do you think you've been abducted then?
Maybe 5. Maybe 5.
That you know of?
Yeah. That I have any recall, or snippet of something, but don't really know. You know, when you go to bed and you go to sleep, and then you find yourself, you're like, was it a dream? Was it not? You know, for the most part, I've had someone with me when anything ever has happened. When I got abducted from Ann Andrews in 2007, Paola Harris was there. She was like, I am not staying in this house. She went to stay in a hotel. Ellis Taylor was there. He was abducted with me. You know, so it's like, I've got all these other people who've got, well, they didn't have the same experience as me, because they have their own thing. But there's a mirroring in all of it, especially with the women. So, and that abduction, there was like, there must have been like 8 or 10 people in that house, and they were like, oh, that the security light kept me awake all night. There isn't a security light. In the morning, Anne's cockerel was dead. You know, it was just, it's just grim.
Carnage.
And then all you do afterwards is question your sanity. Anyone who's ever questioned my sanity, if we put all of those people who questioned my sanity together, they still haven't, as a collective, questioned my sanity as much as I have. Because you're just like, well, this can't be real. I must be ill. And I've had myself, I've been on the psych ward. I've thrown myself, I'm in therapy now talking about it. You know, they keep telling me that I ought to be a therapist. Not
Yeah.
that I, you know, even though I do need the therapy, they're not saying I don't, because I do. But like when I was in hospital, they were like, you should be working here, not in here, you know? So if they're saying that about me, then I'm not insane and there's nothing I can do about it. Because if I was, I could take all the medications and be fine, couldn't I?
I know you spoke a little bit about it before. What's your theory on Rendlesham Forest then?
Not a popular one. Okay, so I used to be into like all the military stuff, and I used to look for military documents. For some reason, I had this thing about them, and while I was like in the bowels of Google on some weird rabbit hole thing that I ended up in, and I was looking at documents that were like AF 2022. There was no title to them, and I'm like, oh, what are these? And I clicked on a few, and one of them was the behavioral sciences in nuclear defense and law enforcement, right? So it was a defense nuclear, was it DNA, something like that, DNA, Defense Nuclear Agency, and the Law Enforcement Standards Agency, and they were working together on a project that lasted 10 years, and all these symposium notes that they had. So I found this one, and it was talking about a black hat, white hat, storming of a base to get to the cookie jar being nuclear material, right? And then how these bases were easily compromised, and the bases that they wanted to test were near the sea. They were near it was two bases close to each other by the forest, in a forest, right?
Right.
So I was like, well, that sounds like Rendlesham.
It does,
But also, if you read Robert Hastings' book, UFOs and Nukes, you'll see that the entire East Coast on the Gulf, there was activity on the bases that night. And it was the same weekend that the Cash Lundrum thing happened. Right, so this was in America and England, and you've got the similar sort of things going off. And then Major Zickler, right, he was a temporary, the major there over this period, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so that's important, right? The last one had been kicked out because he'd been busted for drugs, right? Doing drugs, selling drugs, whatever, I'm not sure. So Zickler came in, and he was overseeing the bases at that time. That all this stuff was going on, and they were saying that they weren't prepared for anything, an aerial attack of any kind. And we've had some very Buck Rogers ideas, which, you know, Buck Rogers are all flying around in little spaceships, aren't they? Yeah. So there's 10 years worth of notes. So I'm going through it all. I'm now looking at all of the people who were attending and what they were working on. So I was Googling them, their technologies, their CVs, their thesis, their everything that they'd ever done. And they were up to some absolutely crazy stuff with electromagnetism, electric bullets, all this kind of crazy, like Buck Rogers kind of stuff. So I decided that these notes and that we're talking about events that were happening on bases where they were pretending to be UFOs, and that it was a twin base that they were on, and I decided it was Rendlesham, right? Now, I have absolutely no evidence to back that up, but I decided that's what it was, and that I was absolutely correct, and I carried myself as if that was true. And now I'm like, I don't know, because I wasn't there, right? But I was very confident. And I might still be right, I don't know. But anyway, it was very, very interesting. So at the end of all this, Zickler, when he leaves there, does his career, he goes back to Virginia where he lives, and he sets up a business called Woodbridge Engineering. And Woodbridge Engineering sets up realistic events to test officer aptitude, enemy response, and base technologies. Now, isn't that interesting? When I
Very
was saying that this was to test the base, to test the personnel, what better way to find out if people can handle freaky situations, and then a better way to find out how your enemy would react, because we're all people at the end of the day. So some will scatter, some will switch on and get all, like know what to do. So yeah, and then I met John Vasquez in Fort Benning, and they had a UFO invasion that wasn't. It was a joint attack weapon system test, and it was a Boeing craft with a glass bottom. They had like stealth helicopters and blah, blah. You don't even have to believe me. You can find the documents online. The entire test, everything that they did, it's all in these papers. And they were using parabolic mirrors to create holograms. There was all mad stuff. Incident at Fort Benning is a book that John Vasquez wrote. He's dead now, unfortunately. But he thought it was a real UFO invasion. And me and Ronnie Dugdale were trying to sort of like coax him round into realizing that it was an actual military test. But you were meant to believe that it was UFOs. That's what they staged it to be, like a realistic UFO invasion. So they do play it being UFOs. So no, I don't trust anything now. All of this stuff that's been going on is like, oh, it's probably them.
It's strange. How did you come across them papers then?
Because I'm a weirdo doing little weirdo things and falling down rabbit holes in Google, and I couldn't even tell you how I ended up with this. I found another one that said, if a UFO crashes, this is the protocol. There was the stuff goes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, not Area 51, not Groom Lake in Nevada. It goes to Wright-Patterson. Here's the desk number to call. You need these people, these people, these people. And I didn't know that was legit. Paul Dean in Australia, who is the document hound of ufology, he confirmed that it was completely legit. And there were 2 amended versions of it after that. And this was in the 50s. So, this is all of this stuff, all the hubbub. It's right. Except we all thought that everything got sent to Area 51 or Groom Lake. But no, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Yeah.
Yes, we talked about that before as well. But I know once you get into something, you want to finish it, don't you? You want to look right into it, find out more and more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the autism.
No, but that's good.
I can focus myself into a complete coma and burn myself out totally, wreck myself. But then I know everything there is to know about something, move on, and then all the information just dissipates and vanishes like I never knew it. Until I talk to someone and then it's all there. I'm like, I thought I'd forgotten all this.
Yeah, I know.
Computer brain.
What do you think about ufology at the moment then?
Look, I love the subject of UFOs and all the incidents that happen, and it should be the most exciting, effervescent topic that there is. But people take the most shiny, colourful stuff and then they just drone on and on and on about it. And then, you're boring me. Why are you so boring? Why are you talking like that? Why aren't you excited by this? Why have you got no passion whatsoever? Right? And then, it's so misogynistic. I swear. Oh, don't listen to her. She swears. Oh, she's mentally ill. Oh, she's this, that, and the other. All the bitching and all the crap that goes on. And the fact that I am so analytical, and because of all the documents that I found about all these things that they actually do, then I'm like, well, I can't say, and I won't say if I think that is an alien craft or an unknown structured craft of terrestrial origin that we just are unaware of, because they get up to stuff. So in my heart, I know that I've seen stuff that I don't believe is from here, but my intellect is like going, you don't know that for a fact, therefore you cannot make that conclusion. So I kind of like sit on the fence these days a bit, because I don't know, right? Even the things that we saw in Wales could have been ours, could have been something crazy that we've got going on. I don't remember seeing inside it. I don't remember being taken aboard or any alien anything. So, you know, I can't say that. I just know what I saw. I assumed at one point that we'd been abducted, because we were all very weird the next day. Even those who hadn't been outside, like I'd on my own. I was the one who ran in fear for my life. No one else did. So, you know, there's things that make me think maybe something happened to us after, but I don't know it for sure. And if someone's lied, I find it very hard to trust anything. If they've lied a few times, then they're a write-off. You know, people come and go and they keep coming back. And then they get, every time they come back, because I've been in ufology 20 years, you see that pattern recognition is my thing. And then they come back and everything's a little bit bigger and a little bit more padded out. And then like eventually other people will jump on this person because they're getting popular. And then they'll start writing the stuff for them and going, oh, I found this, let's add this to the pile. And, you know, and it's like, yeah, you see, if it was all that, then it would have been all that in the beginning. You know what I mean? So I find it hard to trust people after the Larry Warren thing.
Oh my God.
You know, I saw ufology for what it is, and it's a savage beast. And a lot of people do not give a toss if people are lying. And when I'm coming out and going, oh, that's probably not a UFO, it's this, it looks like this, they've got this technology, it might be that. Those are just drones, they're not UFOs, they're drones. They're calling them drones and you're calling them UFO, it's a drone. You know, but not a UFO, and they're a liar, doesn't sell. So in the way I am, it's counterproductive to hang around with me if you're trying to sell ufology and I'm trying to dismantle ufology to get to what is actually the truth and what my life is, because I have got a life that I don't know half of what it is. Half of it is unknown to me. And with all these people making all this noise and all this mess, how the hell am I ever going to find out? So when people go, oh, she's hostile, it's like, you bet I'm hostile sometimes, but I'm going to match your energy. So if you come at me, what do you think you're going to get back? You know? So at the moment, I'm really not in love with ufology. The subject I am, but
yeah,
the scene itself, you know, and God bless people for trying to sort of like have anything going on with me, but they soon find out that actually I don't believe a lot of what is out there. I do believe a lot of what is out there, but there's a big chunk of a lot of the popular stuff that's like, no, I don't believe it, and I've got my reasons. You know, you know, like everything that I think, I've got a reason for. I don't just go, oh, because I used to believe stuff like that. I like that. Yeah, I believe that. That seems to fit. That feels comfortable to me, because all my stuff's really uncomfortable. So I try to make it comfortable with the belief system and stuff. But it's like, at the end of the day, I don't feel any better because it's not actually, you know, how can you take it away?
Recently, I know we haven't got long left. Recently, there's been lots of drones sighted at Air Force bases, airfields. You know, what's all that about?
But they were looking for something. They were looking for something that had a radioactive signature. So if you think about what's going on in the world at the moment, and what I found out from those documents is little bits of nuclear material have been stolen from all over the place. And this stuff can be made into bombs, you know? So the fact that terrorism has been created because of all of the wars, people hate us. People hate America and they hate Britain for being involved in these things. And it would not surprise me if people have been trying to set off a nuke in Times Square, New York, New Year's Eve, wherever, you know, something like that, and that they're trying to find this thing, and it will leave a signature wherever it goes because it's radiation. And these drones have capabilities, you know, to find these things. You know, they called them in the Joint Operational Forces Concept 2012, they call them reusable platforms because they can mount things on them and send them up and down and come back and take it off and put something else on it. It can be a weapon, a microphone, a camera, all of the above, you know, something that can detect radiation, something that detects heat signatures, whatever. you know, all these things are is a platform for weaponry and spying, basically. So when they're saying it's all drones, it's drones. You know, like there was but in 2005-6, we had loads of like orange spheres appearing, the back again, but they were like in formation. So they'd be like, one sighting that I got was one sphere came up and then another, and it formed, you know, like a V shape like that. Then the last one, when that came up, they all flew off together, right? Not lanterns. Then there was another one where they all formed a line and moved off. And then me and some friends seen some in Newton Stewart. And then all of a sudden, Thai lanterns, Chinese lanterns flooded. The entire everywhere was flooded. All of a sudden, boom, like that. And everyone was getting them. Everyone was lighting them up and setting them off. So I had on my website a wind widget so you could see which way the wind direction was, because I was like, a lot of it is going to be these. But if they're going against the wind, if they're doing anything unusual, like if they're obviously intelligently controlled, hanging around waiting for each other, doing stuff together, they're not lanterns. But I did think it was a bit of a coincidence that we're getting all of these orange sphere sightings, and then all of a sudden the skies are just full of all these lanterns. Do you know what I mean? So with the drones and stuff like that, it's like, well, you know, as activity started again, because it seems to have like a lull and then a peak and a lull and a peak and a lull. And then, you know, are they putting all stuff up there and doing all this because when we look up and we see something, we'll just go, nah, it's a drone. But it's not, you know. It's just, like I say, flip-flop a lot with a lot of things. But I know the phenomena is real. I have literally had my forehead on an alien's forehead. I've seen UFOs and I've not been alone. So I can't say that I'm Delulu. It might have driven me Delulu, but, you know, that is chicken and egg thing, isn't it? You know.
I know. Lee just wrote, where does the whistleblowers come in and why now?
Well, all they're doing is feeding everything that we've all said for years back to us. That David Grush, what is he saying that we don't already know? Nothing, right? He's even said some stuff that's been debunked. He's very questionable, right? Why? What for? He's never seen anything. He's not seen it himself. He's swearing under oath in Congress for something that he hasn't even seen. So what's that about? You know, like, and like I said, everything they're saying is it's just feeding everything that we already have said back to us. It's the general hubbub. But it's like, the sources, trust me, bro. You know, like, so they're not whistleblowers. He's not a whistleblower. Now, Kevin Day and Sean Cahill and all those other guys from the Nimitz, yeah, absolutely. They are witnesses. Yeah. Totally legit witnesses. To what, though? To what? Because they've got this fancy new radar system and they go out and then, like, all of a sudden there's all this stuff going on. I'm like, bit sus. Performances for them. Sean Cahill's out on the deck and he's looking up and there's like lights that twist on like that round when he's looking at them. Timing. You know, I'm so suspicious of them because I know that they play at being UFOs, and that was in 1980 when they did that. And Fort Benning was 1976 when they had all that mad hologram stuff going on. And this is like 50 years on. You know, if you're a UFO researcher, right, and you are not keeping on top of the types of technology that are being developed or could possibly have been developed from things that we know that they developed in the past but just gone completely quiet, right, where would that be now? If you're not on top of what we've got as a terrestrial created structured craft, which they've got bonkers shapes and all kinds of stuff, right, then how can you say that you're trying to identify anything when you don't even know the technologies that we've got? I can't take people seriously if they're not swatting up on military things, possible black ops stuff, all the little rumours and snippets and things that we've had in the past. It comes to something in the end. We'll look back and we'll go, oh, they really were working on that B-52 that's as thin as a freaking credit card. And, you know, like totally weird shape on it that everyone looked like on that's a UFO, right? So they deliberately make things look like the sort of design of pop culture UFOs now. You know, these spheres could quite likely be ours, you know?
I'm sure.
So it's just, but I totally do believe the phenomena is real. It's absolutely real, and that I've experienced it. And that, you know, I did go through a Carla Turner phase of thinking maybe all of it was like my labs, because I've had my labs as well. Maybe it is all people pretending to be aliens and things like that. And I'm like, it makes no sense why.
No, I don't. No. Right, yeah, we've just about come to the end. If anybody wants to find you or get in touch with you, where can they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm not really on Facebook a lot because that's where a lot of awful stuff's happened. So I've kind of like fallen out of love with it a bit, and you can't even have a banter on there. You just can't have a laugh anymore. You get every comment removed. Everyone seems to be, and it makes me turn into a grumpy cow when I go on and just see some, and I think, oh God, you know, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be. I'm sorry, I just won't go on if it makes me like that. I'm not going on. But I do have an account, and I do check my messages because I talk to people on there a lot, and I'm on TikTok. Infomaniac housewife on TikTok. I don't really talk about my stuff. I'm starting to, like I said to you before, I've had a massive break trying to figure out where I want to go in life. How do I want to do it? And I'm just going to take a leaf out of Paul's book and just do what I do in my own little space. And if people like my stuff, they'll come to me there and, you know, like engage with it. And, you know, I don't have to keep flogging a dead horse on Facebook, or, you know, going over the same thing, having the same arguments with different people time over and time over. New people come to you, follow you. It's the same thing over and over and over. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I can't keep doing this. So I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I think I'm going to start up my podcast again, and I'm going to start talking about things that have happened to me again, and just find my community that, you know, are interested in my BS. And
do you still
that I made.
do you still have your meetings?
Yeah, they're still going on. You know, but like it's all, like I say, a lot of it is stuff that I just don't believe, and I feel like I make other people uncomfortable by dismissing stuff all the time. And like, because a lot of people are like, the beliefs are tied into the identity and stuff. So like, you know, if I'm going, oh no, I don't believe that, it's almost like I'm insulting them as a person, and they might think that I think they're stupid, or just sitting with somebody who bubble pops all the time. You know what I mean? Like, they want to talk about mysteries and things, and I want to smash mysteries to pieces to get to truth. So we're coming from different places, but I think it's good to have somebody who's skeptical. But at the same time, I think I just need to let them just do what they want to do, and just create something where I can just be that. Yeah. And also, what can you tell from a UFO? Like, you can maybe see what shape it is, what color it is, how high is it? Don't know. How's it up there? Don't know. Who's in it? Don't know. It's like, don't know. With experiences, there's so much you can like pull around, and, you know, it's very inspiring to me. And like, when I speak to Phil Kinsella, especially, I feel really fired up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to, you know, dig deeper and talk to more people, because like you probably can tell that I'm a verbal processor. So I need to speak to people. I need to speak about my stuff to understand anything about it, do you know, and find other people who've had their things. So it feeds into mine in a way that makes me think of things that I wouldn't ordinarily think of, because I'm trying to, you know, find something I'll probably never find, but my brain won't leave it alone. So I've got to go with it. You know what I mean? It never has a minute off.
It's been lovely talking to you tonight.
Oh, Joe, I've rabbited your head off, though.
Well, it's good. It's good to get you back doing things what you like doing.
It's like I've been in therapy, and I'm like, right, what do I want my life to look like now? You know, I thought I'm going to start doing stuff again. And I'd only just made that decision, and then like out of the blue, you were just like, "Oh, come on, be sure." And I was like, "Well, there you go. There's a sign from the universe that that is what I'm supposed to be doing."
It was meant to be for me to get in touch with you.
Yeah. So nice one.
Yeah, but thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me on, Bob. I always love talking to you, and I'll come up